Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our monthly onX Hunt 101. We're going to give it just a few minutes here to let people roll in and let everybody get situated. While we're waiting, just some housekeeping items. Your audio and video are turned off. So if you have noise in the background or something going on, no worries. We can't hear you. We can't see you. If you do have any questions that come up during the class, there's a Q&A box down below. We have a couple folks from our customer support team that are answering questions, so drop them in there. There's also a chat box down at the bottom. That's a better spot just to say, hey, checking in from Pennsylvania, or hey, checking in from Washington, or wherever you are. Questions are a little hard to keep track of in there, so drop them in the Q&A. That's easier for us to go through them and answer them as they come in. We'll also be doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're giving away some hats like I have on here. That will be posted in the chat. We'll have a link there where you go to just fill out your information and stuff for that giveaway. So stick around towards the end for that. Any account type questions that come up, anything, if you have questions on like your billing, renewal date, passwords, anything like that, we won't really have the time to answer those tonight. So those are best sent to our customer support email, which is what, Tori?
help@onxmaps.com.
That's the spot to go. If you have any questions at all ever that come up, not just tonight, email our customer support folks there. I'm biased, but they're the best in the biz. They'll get you taken care of and answer any questions that you have. If you have anything that comes up, after this class is over, or anything like that, that's a spot to go. We are recording this class, so it will be available to view later. If you have to drop off or you miss something, you want to go back and rewatch it, you'll get emailed a link tomorrow evening with the YouTube link. It'll also be live on the onX Hunt YouTube channel, so you can search for it there. We have a playlist with all of our master classes, so you can watch this one, tomorrow once it gets uploaded. You can go back and watch any of the past ones. We have all kinds of stuff on scouting or, any kinds of different topics, hunting topics, I guess,
Right,
for lack of a better term. So we've been doing these for almost a year now. So we've got a pretty big back catalog. You can go check those out. What am I forgetting?
our names, who we are,
My name's Jack.
and I'm Tori. That was easy.
That's who we are.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. What are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about the different membership levels of onX Hunt and what they get you. We're going to get into the basics of the app and the web map. So we'll talk about how to use layers, offline maps, marking waypoints, finding public and private land, using topographic maps, satellite maps, all that good stuff. And then with any time we have left over at the end of the hour, we'll do some question and answer. Some folks sent in questions when they registered, so I've got a few of those. Some common ones we'll go over. A lot of the questions folks asked are kind of topics we're already planning on covering, so hopefully we'll get answers to everybody who has questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing right now, and I'm going to jump over to my phone so that I can share and I can show you my app screen there. Just give me 1 second while that boots up. All right.
And like Jack said, if you guys have anything account specific, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. We'll be able to help you. We take care of those emails within 24 business hours. So you'll hear from us tomorrow.
Yep. So here we are. We're in the map. I've logged in. So that's the first step. I guess we should have started there when you first download the app. If you haven't done it yet, it's going to ask for your email and password. Later on, when we jump to the computer, you'll log in the same way. Your email and password are the same on both of those. That's kind of a common thing we get. Some people use a different email on their computer than they use on your phone. You have to use the same email no matter where you log in to onX. And you can access onX on a phone, on a tablet, on a computer. So kind of any device for the most part, that gets internet, you can access your account there.
Yeah, and we're not holding you to just, one specific device. So like I'm logged in on my Android phone, on my iPad, tablet, and on my computer. So as long as you're signing in with the same email, same password, your content is going to show up there. And we'll talk about content here in a little bit.
And that reminds me, if you were to get a new phone, all you have to do is download the app to the new phone, log in. Everything will be there just like it was on your old one. You don't have to worry about transferring anything or doing anything manual like that.
And if they need help, what should they do?
Email help@onxmaps.com.
There you go.
Good setup, Tori. So I've got, we're trying something new for this one. I've got a Bluetooth mouse that I'm using on my phone here. So you see this little dot. Your app's not going to have that on there unless you have the same mouse as me, but it's just so that people can kind of see where I'm clicking. Otherwise, you just use your finger to tap. So this is the map. You can see we're here in lovely Missoula, Montana. And the first thing most people want to know is, how do I know where I am? Kind of our tagline at onX is know where you stand. So this blue dot here is my location. And let me just move the map away. Let's say I pull up the map and I don't see my blue dot anywhere. To bring my location front and center on the screen, I click that button in the lower right-hand corner that looks like a wagon wheel or like a crosshair, and it's going to pull the map back to where I am.
If for some reason it's not, it may be because you didn't allow your device to know your location. See that error message when that comes up. If you hit it, it'll say, hey, is it okay if we know your location? Please hit yes. That way we can, use it in the field. That's kind of the whole idea.
Yep, the app has to have permission. You have to grant that permission to show your location there. So there I am. I'm sitting here at the onX World Headquarters in Missoula, Montana. If I click that location button one more time, it pulls up what we call compass mode. So this is a question we get of, hey, how do I orient the map so that whatever direction I'm facing is up? Instead of, normally north is up on the map. Now, as I move my phone around, you can see as I'm spinning it, the map's going to spin to show whatever direction my phone is facing is going to be up. So this is super useful if I'm hiking along a trail and I want to be able to follow the twists and turns of that trail, or, if I'm driving, be safe when you're driving. We are coming out we have Apple CarPlay right now.
Yep.
And Android Auto is coming soon. So we will have it in the head unit of your truck. That's a little bit beyond the purview of this class and a little hard to demo when we're sitting in an office,
right,
not in a truck. But that's a little bit of a safer way than having your phone while you're driving. But if you're co-pilot, you can have this up and you can see, hey, take a left at this fork, take the right intersection, whatever. I use this all the time when I'm hiking. I probably use it more than I use the regular north oriented up. So that's how you do that. Let me get back to my mouse here. So again, click it, you'll see the dot or the circle turns to an arrow. And then if you want to get out of it, you can either click it again or go up here to the compass. And that'll bring it back to your normal operation where north is oriented up and it's just your blue dot there. So that's finding your location, compass mode. Next, we're going to dive into map layers. That's along the bottom left-hand corner here. And this is really kind of the nuts and bolts of the app. This is what people kind of first buy onX for, is to get these layers. So if you have a basic membership right now, meaning you had a trial and it expired, you haven't purchased a membership, you won't have access to all of the layers I'm going to show you here. That's really what your premium and elite membership gets you, is access to these different layers. So premium membership gets you one state. You see, I have Montana listed here right now. Yours may say Missouri or Florida or whatever state you selected when you created your account. And your layers are grouped into different folders or collections. So if I expand this menu, you can see I have Montana, I have Canada. We'll get to that in a little bit. Current conditions, land and access, bunch of different collections.
The way that Jack expanded that, if you saw him click on the mouse, you just kind of basically you click and kind of drag up on your phone. So that's how you expand that.
And so if I click on a folder here, it's going to open up and show me the layers that are available for that collection. So for Montana, we have, I'm many different layers do we have for Montana? It's like 9, right, Tori?
I think so.
I could probably count, but the big ones that most people are interested in are the private lands, the government lands, and the hunting districts. Every state's going to have these. Yours might not say hunting districts. Every state calls them something different. It might be hunting zones. It might be game management units. Everyone's got a little bit of a different vernacular.
And one thing to say too is what we're looking at right now, this is on an iPhone. Android, they're going to be very, very similar, but a little different. So if you're seeing something where you might say like, oh, I don't see it exactly the same way. It could be just because you're using an Android device, but all the same functions are there from device to device.
Yep. So all these layers here can be turned on and off. There's just a little toggle switch here. So you can see I pretty much always have private lands and government lands turned on. Same with hunting districts, same with possible access and the block management. Those are the ones I never turn off, really.
Same.
This possible access one, that is something we get a question on fairly often. Those are private lands that may allow public access. So they're timber company lands.
How can you find out more about it?
Let's find out more by clicking the details. So these are, like it says in the description, a lot of these are timber company lands like we have in Montana and throughout the West here. Some Midwestern states have this. I think there may be some in like the Southeast, some of those working forests. Land conservation groups like the Nature Conservancy is a big one. Different land trusts will often have land that's open to public use. They all have kind of different rules and regulations. Some allow camping, some don't. Some allow hunting, some allow, off-road type access. Many don't, many
So
it's
what you're
not
saying is
motorized.
there's possible access?
It's possible.
Okay.
So what this layer does is it shows you, hey, this is a spot you might be able to go, but you need to do a little bit of research and find out what exactly access is allowed and what the rules are. I want to jump back up to this hunting districts one. So again, in your state, it might say game management units, wildlife management units, hunt zones, hunt areas. There's all kinds of different names for it. But most states have multiple different districts or units depending on species. Right now, the Wyoming elk application is coming up end of the month. So if you're thinking about hunting in Wyoming, get your applications in. But that's something we quite often hear. Wyoming's the biggest culprit because Wyoming has different units for every different species. So they have elk units, they have antelope units, they have bear units, they have deer units, they have bighorn sheep, mountain goat, you name it.
Big game that opens first is antelope. So we get a lot of people saying, hey, we're not, your units are wrong. I'm not seeing the right units. This would be why.
Yeah. So I believe it's mule deer by default is what's selected there. So if you're hunting mule deer, you're probably good to go. If not, you need to change it. And your state, most states, since especially outside of the West, white-tailed deer is the most hunted animal. Deer is selected by default. But if you're looking for spring turkey coming up, or you're a trapper, you're looking for fur bearer zones, whatever. Take a look at these different sub layers in here. You can see I have deer, elk, lion selected right now for Montana. That's the one that's chosen by default. But spring turkey's coming up. I can select that one, and then the units change on my map. And that's these kind of green lines here. That's your different game management units. Back to layers. Anything else I need to mention? State layers type things.
The nice thing about layers too, just as we're talking about searching the map, is if you're not seeing something, if you're like, man, I think I'm seeing some information about Montana, but I'm not seeing the ownership, there's a good chance that we might have accidentally just bumped that off. So it's a really easy thing to go in, just toggle it back on, and you should be seeing something. That's also, and we're going to go over some other different layers, but all the different layers are going to kind of show a different design, that a different crosshatch or a different color. If you're seeing something that's like, man, why is this happening? Probably just because we maybe just have a layer turned on that's creating that view.
Yep. So great point. Something I almost missed here. Let me zoom back in. Another question we get is, hey, what do all these colors mean? What does this symbol on the map mean? The best way to find that out is to tap on the map. So I just clicked on that green shading. What does that mean? So that's the Lolo National Forest. It's going to tell me here, Lolo National Forest, government lands. This chunk is 67,000 acres. It's going to tell me what hunt unit I'm in. So for my spring turkey, it's general district.
Whatever
There's also
layers
this
you have
one.
turned on when you click, it's gonna give you that information.
Yep.
So if Jack would have had the deer elk lion turned on, it would give us information about that unit.
Yep. So for your public lands, they're color coded and it's pretty much the same across the country. National forests are this green color. State lands are going to be this blue color. Let me see if I can find some BLM. Is this yellow color here? If I go up, tribal land is this kind of darker yellow color. Go up to Glacier National Park, it's purple. Military installations are pink. County lands, kind of more of a gray or a tannish yellow color. So once you kind of get into it, you'll know at a glance. This is national forest. This is state land. This is county land. This is Fish and Wildlife Service.
We get asked quite often too, like, hey, where's the legend? And
Yeah.
we don't have a legend in the app. We can find it on our website in our frequent asked questions. You can search for that. But the best way is if you just tap on it, that's going to pull up that information and let you know what it is.
Yep. And then for private lands, if I click on a private parcel, it's going to tell you who the owner is. So this is another question we get of, hey, how do I know who owns what? Have your private lands layer turned on. When you zoom in, you'll start seeing the names on the map. And a smaller parcel, you're going to have to zoom in closer for it to show. A bigger parcel is going to show when you're farther zoomed out. Best thing to do, tap on it. It's going to tell you the owner name. You can see this parcel is in an LLC, which is becoming more common. May just have somebody's name there, maybe a company or something like that. It's going to give you their tax address. So that is not necessarily the address of that parcel. It may be, and often it is, but especially when you're looking at farmland, ranch lands, a lot of times there is no mailbox there, right?
Right.
So the farmer lives somewhere else, landowner lives somewhere else. The tax address is where they get their mail, basically. So if you wanted to try to track them down, contact them, you could send them a letter. You could use that. We've had people use that information to go, to the white pages or something.
Sure.
to get a phone number. So that's how you do that, how you find that information.
And you will have that tax address listed if it's provided to us. You might see
Yes.
somewhere it's not there, but yeah, we don't have emails, we don't have phone numbers. I can't
Right.
imagine having like a bunch of prime hunting land and have my phone number out there for everybody.
I've
Hook it up
heard,
to a fax machine.
I've heard from some ranchers in, central Montana, eastern Montana, and they're getting sometimes like hundreds of calls
Yeah.
a week right now
Right.
without their phone number being in the onX app.
Right.
So that's why we don't have phone numbers in there, just because out of respect for the landowners, that they're not getting inundated with calls.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's kind of the one thing I think of is, oh man, it'd be nice if it had a phone number in there. I could call them and get permission. But then everybody has their phone
Right,
number
yeah.
and everybody's calling. So it kind of is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really.
Yeah.
Wanted to touch quickly. We're going to move on to a few other map layer categories here. We're not going to go super in depth on these. I just want to make sure everybody's aware. The current conditions folder is going to tell you things like drought data. The active wildfire is one we hear about quite often, not so much this time of year, but in the summer. You can turn that one on and it's going to show you where the reported fires are, when they started, and their perimeter.
Yeah, the
acreage of it. And that's updated multiple times a day. When you find a fire, there's not many on here right now, so I can't really go show you an example, but if you click on an active fire, it'll tell you when we last pulled the data from the data source, whether it's the Forest Service or whoever, and then we'll also tell you the last time they updated. So quite often we'll be pulling data multiple times a day, but they haven't updated it in 3-4 days. So our data is as good as what they have, but it gives you a sense of, okay, this was updated from data 3 days ago. Things might be different on the ground right now, but gives you a good idea of, hey, my hunt unit is half on fire right now. That may be good, that may be bad, right? Depending on how hot it burns and when it gets put out. If I go back, This mouse is really throwing me. Land and access. Wilderness areas should be turned on automatically. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas is another one I turn on. If you have like waterfowl or wildlife refuges near you, a lot of those allow hunting. They have their own regulations, their own rules. So that's something, turn this layer on. There's a couple refuges near Missoula, one that allows hunting. If you tap on the map, it's going to pull up a link where you can go right to that refuge's website where they're going to have their rules there. That's the best place to go. They're the source of truth. They're the authority when they say this type of hunting is allowed in this area or on these certain dates. So you want to go with what they say. So that's just a quick, easy way to find that. And there's a lot of other layers in here, RMEF, pheasants and quail forever. We don't have time for today, but one of my biggest recommendations to people is just poke around in the app. Turn stuff on, turn stuff off. You can't break anything. Sometimes people are hesitant, like, oh, I don't want to turn this on. I don't know what it does. Doesn't matter. If you turn it on and you're like, whoa, I don't like that, turn it off. I have some layers in here that I almost never use just because they're, maybe it's data like the Rayonier hunting lease lands. That's timber company land on the West Coast and in the Southeast. Isn't applicable to me. I just turn it off. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, or it might be something like you're just using during scouting and then you turn it off for the rest of the year.
Right. Like we'll get to it here in a little bit. The historic wildfires layer. I have that turned on right now because I'm scouting. When I'm actually hunting, I don't have that turned on. But for the trees, crops, and cover, this is a big category. Timber cuts, I always have turned on. Those are going to show you in the national forest where logging has occurred. So that's super helpful for elk hunting, deer hunting, grouse hunting, all kinds of different, animals use those areas. Historic wildfire, same thing. Morel mushroom season is coming up. Have you ever found a morel mushroom?
I can't imagine how many I've stepped over in my lifetime.
It's got to be a lot. I've never found one.
I think I found 2.
The only mushrooms I've ever found are chicken of the woods because they're bright orange and they're like that big.
Yeah.
So they're hard to miss.
Yeah.
Morels, I'd like to find some, but
no, you just found 2 one time. That was it.
It's a lot of walking for
Unless
I got a sweet spot.
some people that created it.
Oh yeah, some people
They
get
just know.
pounds and pounds and pounds. That was a good tangent. Anyway, there's other layers in there we're not going to be able to get into. Just want to mention them quick. Crop distribution. So that's going to show you what was planted last year. And we're about ready to update that. So it's typically in February. We'll get the crop data for 2022 and put it in there. They do the flights kind of all summer and fall. So we're not able to have it, this summer. When you look at the crop data, it'll be from 2022, won't be 23 just because they haven't been able to aggregate that data. But that's really cool. I grew up in the Midwest, a lot of corn and soybeans. A lot of times it's on a 1-to-1 rotation. So I can pull that up and say, this field was soybeans last year. Pretty good chance it's going to be corn this year.
Right.
Out here, Western Montana, there's a lot of alfalfa. That tends to stay alfalfa for a number of years.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing for scouting. If you're going pheasant hunting, bird hunting, you can say, hey, this is a wheat field. This is, well, I think we have 19 crops in there. That's what it says.
Quite a few.
So your part of the world, we got some crops there for you. Similar idea with the different tree species layers there. So you can turn on the deciduous trees and pinpoint oak trees if you want. We even have an acorn producing oaks layer. So those are oak trees that are mature enough to produce acorns. We've got young aspen for us. You can turn on, I just want to see hemlock stands or spruce. That's all in there. Again, poke around in there, turn those on and off, mess around with them. Super cool resource. The last category I want to touch on is not the land and access, but the roads, trails, and rec. So these are ones I always have turned on. The trails are typically going to be mostly non-motorized, so hiking trails, mountain bike trails, things like that. The trail slope is going to color code them based on how steep they are.
I think it's a great layer.
So that one I'll show you here because there's a good example. I have that turned on. This is the M trail in Missoula where you can hike up Mount Sentinel to the M. And you can see if I hike up, here we go. I got this for a reason. This trail here is real steep. That's why it's red. This is a little less steep. It's orange. This section's yellow. Green is the flattest. So that's a cool one to have on. You can take a look at and say, hey, this would be a great spot to go. It's pretty easy hiking. Or you might say, I'm a badass and this is red and it's going to keep other people out.
Right.
That's why I want to go there, because the elk are getting away from other people. This is hard access. Whatever floats your boat there. Another layer in there. I just talked with somebody today who didn't know this layer existed, and they were just pickled tank to learn that the motorized roads and trails layer. That's one I use all the time. Those are going to be, like it says, roads you can drive a dirt bike, ATV, car, side by side on. Those are mostly going to be on Forest Service and public lands. They're purple roads. Let me find one here. So they look like this. And if I click on one, this is where kind of the magic of this layer comes in. A lot of states, a lot of national forests have seasonal closures on these. So they have dates where they're open, dates where they're closed. Right now, that road is closed. If it was open, it'd probably be too covered in snow to go on it anyways.
Right.
But I've been caught by this before I had onX, or before I knew this layer was there, where I drive up and the gate's closed because it doesn't open until May 16th. So that's something to double check, and then also double check, because some of those trails have a width restriction where it's only for dirt bikes or only for dirt bikes and ATVs. And if your side by side's too wide, you can't go on there. You obviously can't drive a passenger vehicle on there. So this one is, when it is open, I can drive my truck on there. You can drive, an ATV, a side by side, whatever you wish, but you got to wait until May 16th. So that's roads, trails, rec. Again, poke around in there. I usually have most of those layers turned on because they're not cluttering up my map like some other ones do. I just never turn them off. I want to have that information there. Wanted to do a quick poll here. I'm going to pop up. I'll show on your screen. Just to check, make sure we explained map layers well. So it's one question there. If you feel confident that you know how to use map layers, you can answer, yep, I've got this. If you don't feel confident, no, I need more help. We'll give that a couple minutes. Looks like most people feel like they've got this. So, hey, we taught that effectively.
One thing that I'll talk about as far as layers too is, like Jack said, really get in there and play with it. When I first started, I thought, I turned all the layers on and it looked like Dr. Seuss threw up on my phone. I don't know what I was looking at. There's all these different colors and stuff. So it took me a weekend to really go in, turn the layers on and off, and go, oh, that's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And the layer that I looked for that I never ever found was where it tells us where we can and cannot go hunt, because we don't do that.
Right.
We're a reference. You still want to do your due diligence and make sure that these are places that you can go. We want to be we don't want to get anybody in trouble, obviously. So we never ever say it's okay to cut across this possible access. So make sure you guys are still, checking. If you have questions, if it's one of those like, oh, I think I can do this, might be worth the, contact your local fishing game. To double check.
Yeah, that's something that I don't think we'll ever do. It would be nice to just be like, yep, I know I can go hunting here. Things are so nuanced and there's so many, every state, county, municipality is different. Sure. We sometimes hear from people, they're like, what the heck? It says it's public, but I can't hunt there.
Right.
Yellowstone National Park is listed as public land. Doesn't mean you can hunt there,
I think you can do it exactly one time.
Well,
and then you don't get to
they call that poaching.
Yeah, but there's a park right down the street that's public. And sometimes people say like, well, my city, you have it right in the hunt zone. I said, well, that's okay. Yes, Missoula falls into the hunt zone. That doesn't necessarily mean you can hunt here. So it's just worth, if you ever have questions, ask Fish and Game, and you can always email
help@onxmaps.com.
There you go.
I wasn't ready for that.
I know.
All right. So moving on from layers, again, if you have more questions on those, you can always email us or go to our website. We've got great tutorials on there. Even our YouTube channel, we have different tutorials for some of those crop layers and things like that, where we break it down. So that's another great resource. But we need to get to our offline maps here. So this is a really cool feature. And without it, the app would be kind of worthless.
Right.
We often get the question, well, this is all great, but I don't have service where I hunt. We don't either. I don't have service half the time in Missoula. Maybe that's just my phone, but I don't think so. So if I scroll down to the bottom here and click this button, it says offline maps. And if I click new map, it's going to bring up a little bit of a different screen here where I can see the map, and I can still move the map around. So let's say I want to go out here. This is where I'm going to download this portion of the map for when I don't have service. I'm going to save it to my phone. Whatever's within that red box is what's going to be saved. So you can adjust it, get the boundaries lined up how you want. You can change the size of the map. So we have a 5-mile wide map, 10-mile, and 150. If you're on an Android, this might look a little bit different. It might say low, medium, or high imagery detail. Similar idea. The smaller map is going to be higher imagery resolution. The bigger you go, the lower the resolution. I typically will use that medium or that 10-mile wide map. I use that 90% of the time because, to be honest, the difference in the imagery resolution between the 5 and 10 is not that big. It's never caused me like, oh man, if I'd had a 10-mile map, I'd have gotten that deer.
Right.
It's never been anything like that. So the 10 gives us good coverage. I'm just going to hit the save button here so you can see what that looks like. You can see it's got an orange, kind
of that light
green box around it.
It might be orange to some people. I don't know.
Red, green, colorblind. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see my box there. So you say, hey, I got a bigger area I hunt. What you can do is I can just line this up. This is tougher with this mouse than it looks. So I can kind of line the map up and hit save again and create like a grid pattern or quilt them together. That zoomed out too far. So now I have two side by side. And when I go out there, I put my phone into airplane mode, which we'll talk about in a moment. That data is going to be available to me. I'm going to be able to see the land ownership information, the roads, the trails, satellite imagery, the topography, all that stuff.
And that's going to save to your phone device. We get a question, how many maps can I save? We don't limit it. It's really going to be how much your device system has. So you can't save to like a chip. If you have an Android or, a tablet, so it's got to be to the phone device itself.
Yep. So on my personal account, I have over 200 maps saved.
Yeah.
Which is a lot, but I like to know where I am. True. So on my screen here, you can see all the different maps that I have saved. And you can see some of these have names like Bob that I saved in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Some of them just say map, May 18th, 2022. If you don't name your map, it's going to have that timestamp on it. So we can see where's the ones we just saved.
You go to the top, you got to set by ascending. So you can sort your maps, as Jack's finding out here, by different ways. So if we change from new to old, the one that we just created should be at the top of the list.
Right. So what I would recommend is renaming these. I'm just going to rename this one. So what I did there, I need to go back to my pointer here. I clicked on these three dots. I clicked edit. Here we go. Doesn't want to do that. We're learning. And then I can just rename it here.
Yeah, after a while, you're going to have a bunch of different maps. And, if you're kind of doing it from, different days, but if you're scouting, you're sitting down, you save 10, 15 maps, all of a sudden they all say map. And it's that date and time. Right. That's not super helpful if you want to go in and delete it, or if you want to rename it or edit it, something.
Yep. So that one's been changed. And now I know that, I changed it to test, whatever. Give it a real name, something that means something to you. A lot of times I'll name mine if I've got a certain area, it's nearby a town. I'll name it, Missoula. And those are all my maps that are around Missoula, or it's, Deer Camp or whatever. You'll notice this one map here looks like it's like a candy cane or a barber pole. What that means, if you're looking at your phone and you see a bunch of maps that have that striping on it, that means that that map data is not downloaded to your device. So this could happen a couple of ways. Let's say I had a tablet that I like to use because I have the big screen and I save a bunch of maps on that. That's not going to automatically download to my phone. It's going to show up because I have the same account, and the account knows, hey, on another device, you've saved a map in this location, but it's not going to automatically download all those layers in that imagery. So what you need to do is go into your offline maps, and any of those maps that have this down arrow are maps that are saved on your account, but aren't downloaded to your device. You want to download it, all you have to do is click that arrow and it's going to start downloading, and that border will change from red and white to green.
You want to do that when you're at home, when you're connected to a good Wi-Fi signal or somewhere with a good Wi-Fi signal. So you're not going to be saving maps in the field. It does take a little prior proper planning to, prevent poor performance with my mom.
That is correct.
So yeah, save your maps. Green is good. And you'll notice some of Jack's say update available.
Mm-hmm. So what that means, update available, means some of the data within that map has changed. Most commonly, it's going to be private property ownership has changed. That's what we're able to update most often. Could be public property, could be we got new imagery in that area. It could be a hunt unit has changed. It could be some trail data. Something's changed. And you're going to want to update those as often as you can. I try to do it every time there's an update available and I'm on Wi-Fi. You can do it when you're not on Wi-Fi, but if you don't have unlimited data, you might risk an overage or something. It might be a little slower. But I've done it when I've been driving out and I've seen, update available. If I know I'm going to be in service for a while, I'll update. But it's not the end of the world if you don't update. So that map's still going to work. If I just move, so I have these maps here that have updates available. I can still, if I'm driving out and I open my phone up and I say, oh shoot, updates available, but I'm about to lose service, or I don't want to do it on my cell data, don't worry about it. Go hunting, go out there. What it means is something has changed and your map is maybe not as up to date as it could be. Usually, I'm not going to say always, if you're hunting public land, that doesn't change hands all that often. It's most likely even private parcel lines don't change that often. It's mostly a new owner or something is going to change. So if you know where you're hunting, it's an area you're familiar with, you're going to be fine. Update it when you get the chance. It's not the end of the world. Don't think you can't use that map when it says update available. You can. It just, there's something there that's
best practice for me. Like before I go, I'm making sure my phone's safe or plugged in and I'm charged.
Mm-hmm.
I try to make sure the device software itself is updated, the app is updated, and then I'll check my maps to make sure all those are updated too.
Yeah. So I want to do another just quick poll. We went through that pretty fast, but just wanted to see how folks are feeling on offline maps. If you're comfortable to go in and save a map of your area, just click yes or no there. And again, tons of tutorials on our website about this. We've got some YouTube videos. I think we've been updating those with some of the new flows and stuff. So another great resource there. Of course, you can always email us. We're happy to walk you through that. I clicked on. I have two Mies here, and it is messing me up. All right, so we're going to move on. The next part of the app we're going to move to is our tools bar, or our tools section, which is wrong mouse, Jack. Looks like a Swiss Army knife here. I click that and I have 6 different tools here. The first kind of 2 we're going to talk about are related. Most commonly used, most commonly talked about are waypoints. So a waypoint is a spot you can mark on the map to signify something, anything you want to remember or find later. There's 2 ways to mark a waypoint. The first way is this add waypoint button here. If I click that, you can see in the middle of my map, it puts this red X. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so we can move it. And if I tap anywhere else on the map, I can place that waypoint there. So let's say I parked my truck right here on this road. I've got my waypoint marked. I'm going to expand my menu here. I can rename my waypoint. So just like your maps, I recommend renaming these so that you know what they are. And then I can change the icon as well. So we have like 100 different icons.
We've got a lot. It's always going to default to the whatever you're creating. So map or waypoint or line area, and then the date and the time. So yeah, go in there and you can change that up. And with waypoints, it'll have the red X. I'm so glad we can do different icons and different colors, because I mean, I remember when we didn't have that, just a bunch of red X's everywhere.
Yeah, and I've been bad about it in the past where I will just, especially when I'm out hunting and I come across a rub or a wallow, I'll just put an X to be like, just mark that spot and then come back later.
You 32 of them. You're like, what was this for?
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that for? So now when I go through my map and I find red X's, I don't have any data, I just delete them.
Yeah.
Because it means something, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
So I will mark, and I'll put, we have a wallow waypoint. We have upland bird, pheasant, Sasquatch is a fun one. All kinds of different waypoint icons. We're always adding more. So if you see something you want on there that we don't have, let us know. We track all those and periodically we update them. After choosing our icon, we can change the color. Now, this is a very personal thing, what colors you choose. I do it typically by species. So my deer icons are all one color. My elk ones are another color. My grouse spots are a different color. Actually, all my upland birds are yellow. That's one way to do it. Some people will do it based on year. So they'll say my 2022 icons are all red. 2023 is blue. Some people do it on, and I do this a little bit. If it's an area I haven't been to, I want to check out, I might mark it black. And then after I check it out, if it's good, I change it to green. If it's bad, I might change it to red or whatever. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Whatever works for you. But just, it does help to have a bit of a system. I like my species one because I can look at a glance and see there's a bunch of red ones here and brown ones here and black ones here and white ones here. And then I can know these are my turkey spots, these are my bear spots, whatever. So this one, let's just change it to black. If I want, I can take a picture and add it in. So I do this for tree stands, duck blinds, rubs, wallows. I even use it when let's say I kill a deer. I like to take a picture of it and I attach that picture of maybe me with it or when I walked up on it, almost as like a photo album, like a journal. And I can also make notes in here. I do this for scouting. If I'm out looking for, in August, I'm scouting for elk and I like to hunt water holes a lot. I'll walk around to a bunch of different water holes and mark which ones have water, which ones are dry, take a picture. That way, come September, when I'm hunting, I know these are good areas to check. These are areas that probably aren't as good to check. And hit the save button, and I've got it saved there. Let's go back in. I'm going to bring the map back to my location to show you this one. The second way to mark a waypoint, and what I use when I'm out in the field 9 times out of 10, is the mark my location. So I just click that. Nothing showed up on the map, but if I zoom in, can't do that with the mouse. You can see it put a red X on my location. So again, I recommend going in, click on it, click edit. Now it's right where we were, right? I can change it, change it to the house, make it green, sweet. So when I park the truck, I mark my location. When I find a glassine spot, I mark my location. When I'm blood tracking, I'll mark spot where first blood was, where last blood was, where I find my arrow, you name it. I sometimes tell people waypoints are free. They don't cost you anything. Right. Go ahead and mark them. If you don't need it, delete it. I do that all the time where I'm marking something and then move on to something else and just delete the old one. So that's your kind of waypoints in a nutshell there.
And if somebody doesn't want to see that anymore, there are ways where you can hide them. So I mean, you can click on the waypoint itself, and at the bottom of the screen there, it has some information there, but you'll see that hide on map. So you just click on that and it goes away. So this is a way to remove it from view without permanently deleting it.
Yep. And all of your waypoints and all of your content get put into this My Content folder. So I can see all my waypoints here. And if I name one and I want to get to, Jack's lucky spot, it'll bring me right to it on the map. So that's a quick way to move around the map instead of zooming out and panning to it and zooming in. That's a way you can do that. I wonder if that spot actually is lucky.
That's where you found that quarter.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a bicentennial with a drummer boy on the back.
Really paid off. Man. Moving on.
Moving on to our line distance tool. So this is another tool here. I click line distance. Again, a lot of uses for this one. Let's pretend we're in the mountains right now and not in the middle of Midtown Missoula. And I want to know how far away something is. And I don't have a very good rangefinder, which is true, actually. I can drop a point on my location. And let's say I see an animal over here. I can drop another point. And it will eventually update here. Let me hit save. And now that's going to tell me that's 172.5 yards away. So you can use this. I mean, that's one example of there's an animal way over there, or there's something. I can kind of use my aerial imagery to put a line on my location, put one there and see, hey, that's 2 miles away, or that's 300 yards away.
And I know you've talked about it too, where it was helping you track an animal too, where you thought, okay, this is where we think the animal went down, drop the waypoint there and kind of use that. Because when you're walking down, coulee or up a mountain or whatever, you can kind of start losing track of where your line was.
Right. It was, this past fall. Shot a deer, was about 300 yards from where I last saw it, went into some brush. I can take my phone out, go into that compass mode and point it, about where it was. Be like, all right, draw a line. And then it's not going to be exact, but it gets you pretty darn close. Because when you're walking, especially it was getting dark, things look different.
Right.
And I can say, all right, we're getting close now. We're in the general area. So that's one use. People use it to do the perimeter of their yard to see how much fencing they need to buy.
Show the shape.
All kinds of. So the next tool, speaking of shape tool, where are we here? Wrong mouse again. You would think
it's new.
So the area shape tool is similar to the line tool. I'm going to move to a clear spot on the map here. So I can drop a point. I'm going to drop another point.
And there's a crosshair icon.
It's kind of hard to see, but right in the middle of my map, there's a crosshair.
You can just click on the map to yourself to create those.
Correct. A couple different ways to do it. So there's an area shape. Again, you can rename it. After I save it, I can change the color of it if I want. I can rename it, whatever. But this is cool for a lot of people use them for like food plots.
Yeah.
So I need to know how much seed I need to buy, how much fertilizer, how much herbicide, whatever.
I've seen guys use it where like they leased property and like, all right, Jack, this is your area.
Yep.
And I'll take this area and this is when we'll hunt certain times, or you just kind of make that's the cool thing about this app is that Jack and I could be doing the exact same hunts. His is going to look completely different than mine.
Yep. Yeah, the area shape, like you said, people use it to mark out different food plots and they'll have different colors on them. They'll have different hunt areas. We're like, hey, this is where you're going. This is where you're going. And so we don't screw each other up. Don't go out of that area.
Right.
Again, it's kind of a free form app. You can make of it what you want.
You want to show them the tracker?
Let's talk about the tracker. That's where I was going next. So another question we get is, hey, can I track myself? Can I see where I've been? How do I get back to my truck at the end of the day? So first thing, definitely mark a waypoint. Always do that from your truck, your cabin, your whatever, your boat. But then what you want to do is track yourself. And I do this almost all the time I hunt, unless I'm going to an area where like I've been hunting this place for 20 years and I kind of know. I track myself. I'm going to hit start here. I'm not moving, so you're not going to see anything. Let me get back to our location here. You will notice your dot will turn red. That means the tracker is on. And if I were to be walking around right now or driving around, you would see a blue dotted line on the map that's showing where I've been. So that's really useful. I'm just going to turn this off right now. So when you're done, let me back up. When you're done, you hit stop and you can save it. This one's not going to let me save because we didn't go anywhere. So I'm just going to delete. This mouse is not super great. So it's super cool. I use it, leave the truck, and I'll have it tracking me all day. Sometimes it's just so I can tell people how cool I am. That like, hey, I did 7 miles today. Or
It helped me find a glove that I lost too.
done that.
Yeah. I had to backtrack to go back and I was like, oh, there it is.
I did it with a spoon.
Huh.
My long-handled spoon for my dehydrated meals.
Nice.
Left it where I was last glassing and followed my track back to it. Heard of people losing. I remember a guy emailed he lost his like handgun or something and went back and found it.
It's awesome.
So you can use it for that. It's cool to, I use it for blood tracking, super helpful if you're tracking an animal to know where you've been. If you'd have to grid search, people use it for shed hunting for grid searching. So you can see where you've been, what areas you've covered. That's super slick.
I bet those really good mushroom hunters use it too.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
Another cool kind of unique way to use it is if let's say I'm the land manager for my hunt club and I'm setting up all of our tree stands or something, or for my family, hunting our cabin, whatever. I'm the young guy and I'm setting up the tree stands, which if my brother's watching, he's laughing because he sets up the tree stands. Because I don't live in Minnesota anymore. But you could track, here's where we park the 4-wheeler, or here's where we head off the main trail, and track your way into the stand. And then I can share that with Tori if I want. One thing we forgot to mention, all your markups, your waypoints, your tracks, your lines, your areas, you can share with somebody. So I'll do an example here. This one, down along the bottom here, it says share. I'm not going to click that because it's going to pop up all my contacts, and I don't necessarily want everybody to see that. But I can text it to Tori and say, hey, let's meet here. Or, hey, I got an elk down here. Hopefully that's true this weekend. I'm gonna, hey, here's the tree stand. Here's the duck blind. I can share that. And then I can say, here's the path to walk in. Because let's say there's a swamp we need to go around partway in. I don't want to send him through that. Or let's say we take a long circuitous route. That's a good word, circuitous, where we're going around a bedding area. We want to be downwind of where the deer are so that we're not spooking them out. Like, hey, walk in here. This is the way to go in. Super, super useful way. You can use it for safety. I will sometimes do that. I hunt by myself most of the time. I'm not often in super deep backcountry, partly because of that, partly because I don't love hiking.
Yeah.
But I will send a waypoint to somebody and say, hey, this is where I'm going today. If you don't hear from me by tonight, maybe let's talk about search and rescue or something. I do have a satellite communicator so that I can't get in too much trouble, but big safety thing. If you got loved ones at home, especially if you're going out by yourself, say, hey, here's the plan. We're going to hunt this marsh. We plan to be back by a certain time. If something, God forbid, were to happen, they at least have, if they're talking to a game warden or sheriff, like, hey, this was the area they can follow that right away. And a lot of sheriffs, game wardens, conservation officers use onX. So they're using the same tool. Super helpful to have.
What'll happen with all your content too is as you're using it, once you get back into cell service, you take yourself out of airplane mode and it connects to the cloud again. All that information is now going to go to your other devices that you're signed in on. So you'll be able to pull up your app. Log in on the website, and you'll be able to see the content that was created. So everything that we've made today, Jack would be able to pull up on his web, and we'd be able to see it.
Yep. So we're going to do that right now. Give me a moment to share my screen. We're going to leave the app. We're going to jump over to the web maps. This is on a laptop computer, on a desktop. You go to our website, which is www.onxmaps.com. In the top right corner, there's going to be a button that says, say open map now. It just changed it.
Sign in or open map. Yeah.
Top right corner, you'll put in your email and password, and you can see a map that looks just like what was on my phone. And you can see these markups that I just made are showing up here. So whatever I do on my phone syncs to my laptop and vice versa.
If for some reason you don't, like as we're kind of logging in here, Jack refreshed that screen. It didn't show because it was already open. Once he refreshed, it was there.
Yep. So if I have this open already and then made a bunch of stuff on my phone. It's not going to sync right away. Refresh it, will show up there. Same thing on your phone. Sometimes you have to close out, open it back up, and it'll be showing there. But it's cool that I use this for scouting quite a bit. I use this map because it's bigger. I can get more detail. I can use our 3D function, which is really sweet. We'll talk about in a bit. And then I'll mark all these different spots I want to check out. It transfers to my phone. Bob's your uncle. Here we
This
go.
would be the reason why you might have seen that candy cane stripe offline map, because Jack more than likely during scouting created a map here. So if you were to go and create a new map, he's going to save it. This error message box will come up, or should come up, saying, hey, it's been saved, but you still need to save it to your device.
Yep. So that's if you're going to scout and you want to save offline maps that area, you can queue them up kind of on your computer. So I just did one right in the middle of town here. I set that perimeter, and this was super helpful when I was going pronghorn hunting in eastern Montana. That's why I have like 100 maps over there. So I had a big hunt area. Pronghorn, oftentimes involves a lot of driving to get to where they are. And I just went, and it's a lot faster for me on here to go add all these boxes in. Then I went to my phone, boop, 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 downloaded them all. We're good to go. So one aspect of the map that we didn't talk about, and this goes for the phone app as well as the web map, is your different base maps. Okay, so I'm going to move over to kind of the forest here so we can see this a little better. You can see when I zoom in, it's satellite imagery. I can see some of the trails here. I can see this restricted hunting area. That's a weapons restriction because this is a popular recreation area. But it looks, some people say it looks kind of like a Google Earth map, right? It's imagery. I can zoom in. I can take a look at that. But let's say I want to see what the terrain looks like, what the elevation changes look like. In the lower right-hand corner here, there's a button that says satellite in 2D. And this is same spot on your phone, lower right-hand corner, you tap on it. Now I can go to a topographic map where you can see it's like kind of if you're used to the old paper USGS quads maps, it's going to give me my elevation changes here. I can see the contour lines. If I zoom out, you can kind of see some different shading to give you a little bit of a slope aspect. So you can tell, the different sides of the mountain there. So
Yeah,
that's
I think they did a
useful.
really good job with that.
Yeah. So I use this a lot for if I'm looking for benches or different spines, like this area here, a north facing kind of benchy, flatter area. If there weren't roads running right through it, might be a great spot to look for elk in the fall. What I use most of the time is I click over to our hybrid map here, and that's the best of both worlds. I get the contour lines. They are admittedly a little bit more difficult to see because there's more info on the map, but I get the satellite imagery and I get those contour lines. So if I want to look for a nice open bench that's got some grass in it and is flat, like, elk Shangri-La in September, the hybrid base map is going to help get you there. So again, satellite, hybrid, topo, you can click through them. You can check them all out. Use what works for you. I think a lot of people say, I just use satellite.
Yep.
Some people are like, man, I use topo for everything. I'm a hybrid person. Whatever floats your boat.
What's really cool too is all three of those options are going to be in your offline maps when you save them. So you don't have to save 3 different maps like way back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, you had to kind of save multiple maps. Right now, when you save an offline map, all 3 of these base maps are saved there. So you have them offline. Moving into something that we don't have available for offline just yet is our 3D map. So this is, I think, most powerful on the web map on the computer. Topo lines are great. I grew up in Minnesota, though, where there's, especially central Minnesota, where I grew up, not a ton of elevation changes. I didn't use topo maps too often growing up because it would have been like, dude, it's flat.
Right.
What more do you want from me? So more I use topo maps, the more I get better at it, but it still doesn't quite convey what the terrain looks like. This 3D map, super slick. I can move the map around, I can zoom in, and I can begin to see, because topo lines lie, Like, that's not so steep. And then I pull up the 3D map and I'm like, oh, wrong. That's real steep. Even the 3D map, sometimes I'll look at it and be like, that's not so bad. And then you get out there and you're like, I was wrong.
Right.
But it's a good way to look and see, what it might look like, what the view might be. We are working on a cool tool for being able to tell what you can see from a certain area. We're not able to get into that right here, but I've used this where I'll kind of zoom in and be like, all right, if I'm sitting here, what might I be able to see if I'm glassing? Because sometimes you get up there and you're like, man, I can't see anything. Obviously, the trees are going to throw a wrench in the works. There's no real way to render that on a map. But now I can see like, oh, cool. I can kind of see. It's taking a little bit to load here, but that might give me a good idea of what I can see, what I can glass from this location.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool tool.
We're already at an hour here. We're going to speed up, do a couple final things here before we get to our Q&A and our giveaway. I'm gonna have Connor post the giveaway link in the chat right now, if he would. But let me just get out of 3D here. And I want to talk about our search function. Now, this is, again, something that's available on your phone. In the top right corner of your phone app, there's going to be a little icon that looks like a magnifying glass on my computer. It's on the left side here. So we get rid of these. You can search for kind of two different categories of things. Here I have location selected. This would be if I'm searching for a city, a county, a national park, a landmark, a lake. That's where I type it in. So let's say I want to go to Glacier National Park. I can type that in. Here are all of my different options. I'm just going to click the first one. The map is going to bring me up to pretty much smack dab middle of Glacier National Park. So that's one way to search. The way most people are going to use this is to search by landowner. So this would be if I know John Smith owns some land. Type in John Smith, you see we get 10,000 results. There's more than that, but we cut you off at 10,000 because that's enough.
It's a lot.
What you can do, there's a couple ways you can get more accurate results. The first is if you know a middle name or a middle initial, that can help you. I could have just searched for Smith, which is even more results. If the person's name is Jonathan instead of John, that can help narrow it down. The best thing to do is to get the map close to the general area where that person is. You can see all of these landowner results are saying Missoula County, Missoula County, Missoula County. That's because the map here is near Missoula. The glacier's a few hours north of us. If I was looking for a John Smith in Georgia, I should move the map over to Georgia. I'm going to zoom out and let's do,
Minnesota.
Let's do Minnesota because I have it turned on.
Yeah.
You're going to want to have that state turned on, those layers. But if I were to go, let's just redo this. John Smith. Now you see it's given me Minnesota addresses because that's where the map is. It's going to prioritize the results that are closest to where the map is. Now, if I were to zoom in on Minneapolis and type in John Smith, it's going to be even more accurate, right? So the closest you can get, the closer you can get, the better with those searches. What am I forgetting on search?
Click on it.
Let's click on it. There's a John Smith who lives right there. This is you. I'm sorry that we're showing your house to everybody. But that's a way to zoom in on that property of that person there. What are we forgetting, Tori?
Can't think of anything else. Search super helpful. Yeah, the more specific you can be. I mean, I think it's even getting better where if a given name is Robert, you can search by Bob. That might pull up some results, but
and the landowner information on there is going to be how we get it from the county. So sometimes it'll be, some counties go first name, middle initial, last name, some go last name, first name, middle initial. Every county does it different. We mirror what the county tax rolls have. So that's there.
You know, one thing that we could talk about too is if for some reason you see something wrong, because I think a lot of people, the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna go and they're gonna look at their place.
Yep.
Think of how much stuff got bought and sold as we were sitting here talking just in the hour. So, I mean, it is
Right.
hard to kind of keep up with all this. We do the best we can to update, you know, as much as we possibly can. But if for some reason you were to see something wrong, you can click and you can report that in app or on the map. That'll go directly to our map error team and they'll take a look at it and
Yep.
be able to, you know, do their due diligence next time we do an update to make sure that that gets updated.
So here's how you do it on the computer. This is correct, but let's say it isn't. I click on more, and then I can click report an error. On your phone, you tap on it along the bottom of that card that pulls up. There's a report an error option. This is private land. Let's say the owner name's different. I type in the correct info, hit submit. That goes to our mapping team. They go and verify it. We always verify. Some people are like, well, man, why don't you just believe me?
Right.
It's like, no, I'm sorry, because I could go and say, hey, I own all of this land.
Right.
And then we change it, but if I don't own it, so that's why we always verify with the local county. Oftentimes the county's like, yep, that person owns it. We update it on our side. Sometimes if it was bought 2 days ago, the county doesn't have the record. We just have to wait for them to update. But we do our best to update as often as possible. I'm going to stop sharing here, because that's one of the questions we got is how often do you update the map? Common question we get, depends what you're talking about exactly. Private property ownership information gets updated the most often. Depends on your county. Most of the counties in Montana, I think we're able to update monthly. They're pretty close,
A lot.
depending on the county. Some states, I think it's like Wisconsin, all of their counties update in like June.
Yeah.
So we update in July. So some states it's once a year. Some counties it's monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly. We try to match whatever their update schedule is. We try to match that. So the more often they update, the more often we're able to update. We do have some counties where we don't have data in it. Whitman County, Washington. I still memorize some of these. Some counties in the UP of Michigan, the Dakotas have a few. There's some in Colorado. Catrone County, New Mexico, I think was one I remember hearing about.
Some in Illinois.
Some in Illinois. So those are counties that don't have a digitized parcel data set. Most of the time, it's a small county with a small county staff. They just don't have the bandwidth or the funding to digitize that data and make it available to us. If it's out there, we're going to get it. That's what I tell people sometimes.
Yeah, we don't gain anything by not having it.
We want to have it too. Like,
Yeah.
we're not saying,
Yeah, right.
we don't care. It's just that it's not available. If and when it becomes available, counties, every year we're adding a few counties because they're updating. So that's another common question we get. Let me pull up, see what else we have here. Oh, talk about saving phone battery. One thing we didn't mention, super specific on the offline maps. When I'm using my offline maps and I don't have service, I put my phone into airplane mode. That is going to be the best way to save your phone battery, because the two biggest draws in your phone typically are your screen and if it's searching for signal. So even if I have some service, if I'm kind of in and out, I put it in airplane mode. Just simplifies things for the app so that it's not trying to connect and then not and searching. You can get a couple of days out of most modern phones if you're in airplane mode without, without charging it. And then if I get to an area where, hey, I'm going to sit here for a bit and I want to check my messages, I take it out of airplane mode. If I have service, send text, whatever, put it back in.
One thing we didn't talk about either is the actual location service itself go off of satellite signal. So
Yes.
like Jack and I talked about, man, when we leave town, we are out of town.
Yeah.
So as long as you're saving your map, you're able to see information. But let's say you forgot it was a rush trip. Jack did get the car, Tori, we're going right now. And I didn't save anything. I can still use the tracker. I can still create waypoints. I'm not going to probably see a lot of information on my phone. It's going to be probably blurry if I don't have it saved, but you can still create content. And then once you get back into service, you know, your background will come back up.
That's a question we get too, is they're like, hey, if I delete this offline map, will my waypoints I have saved there get deleted too? They're kind of think of them as different things.
Yeah.
Like, you're not saving that box as not like saving that waypoint. it's basically that map data is what's saved as far as your imagery and your layers. So you can mark waypoints and track yourself when you're offline. Even if you don't have a saved map there, doesn't matter. You can still do all that stuff. When you return to service, it's going to sync up and save.
Sadly, it took me a while working here where I was like, oh, it's like a layer. Like you have your
Mhm.
base and then everything layers on top of it. And then your content's at the very, very top.
Yep. Let's see, how best to share 40 plus waypoints with another. Something we didn't get into, it's a little bit beyond a 101, but you can group all of your content into folders, which is super slick if you're sharing content. I just did that this week. Coworker here, we were planning, we've got like a depredation cow elk hunt coming up, and there's certain properties that are enrolled in this program. He outlined them all with the line tool, shared them all to me. Super slick. So if you go into my content, you'll see the option to create a folder. I do this for my species as well as color coding my waypoints. So I have an elk folder, a deer folder, a waterfowl folder. And then you can put all of your waypoints into those folders. And let's say I'm planning a hunt with Tori. We're going to go pheasant hunting. I marked out all these spots, places I want to go. I can send him that folder. Then instead of sending 40 different waypoints individually, he just accepts that share of that folder and they're all on his phone. Also, folders are super slick for hiding waypoints. So right now I'm thinking about spring turkey and spring bear. I don't necessarily want to see my deer, my pheasant, my duck spots because those seasons are over for another year. So I will go into my folders and you can hide all of those at once. So they're removed from my map. And then I just have the waypoints and markups I want. Come fall, I'll turn them back on when I need them, and I'm going to turn off my spring turkey ones. So that's folders. Another question on map, how often it's updated as far as imagery goes. So map imagery is a little bit harder to update than parcel information is. Typically every 2-3 years, I think is our schedule for
We do
most
pretty good as a
states.
company, but we don't own satellites yet.
We don't own satellites or airplanes
Yet.
to take the imagery
Yeah.
yet. So we go to various imagery providers to get the imagery that's available. Sometimes the newest imagery is not so good. It's all covered in snow, for example, or it's got a lot of leaves on it and people want imagery without it. So we're trying to get, for you folks east of the Mississippi, we hear this a lot, like, man, I can't see anything with the leaves on. We're trying to prioritize leaf off data. For folks in the west, in the mountain areas, we're trying to prioritize area, getting no snow in that imagery there. So that's generally 2-3 years old. The imagery should be, sometimes it's a bit older, but we're working to get that updated as much as possible. Let's see, on my waypoints, the GPS location shows all zeros. How do I turn it on to share my location? So what you've done, let me see here. I'm going to try to share my phone real quick. If I can get to the share screen. Why isn't it letting me, Tori?
I don't know. Long story short, if you tap
talk through it, yeah.
tap the top left, those 3 horizontal lines on your device,
Yep.
that's going to open up the menu on the left-hand side. If you go to map settings, there's a toggle that says hide coordinates. So this would be a good way where if you wanted to maybe show like a track you did, but you didn't want people to really know exactly where you were, you'd turn off those coordinates and that's what's showing all zeros.
Yep. So that's just a setting you have turned on. While we're there, there's some other settings. If you want to go from imperial to metric, you can go to metric. You can also change your coordinates from decimal to, if you want to use UTM, DMS to, different coordinate systems, whatever works for you.
It's going to default to decimal because that's going to be the easiest way to search.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of main streets, but there's only one set of coordinates.
Right.
That's
something we forgot to mention with search. You can also search for coordinates. Decimal works best. But if you have from another application or from an old GPS or somebody says, hey, these are the coordinates, you can type them in and search for them. Sometimes that works for, if you don't have service, you can't share a waypoint because there's no way to connect those phones. But let's say Tori and I have, two-way radios and, always be legal. Some states have different regulations on this. But let's say we're not using it to try to hunt game. We're just saying, hey, I made camp at this location.
Yeah.
Here are the coordinates. Because he can't send me a waypoint because there's no service, I could just type in those coordinates and place that waypoint on my map if I wanted.
Perfect.
Sorry, we weren't able to get to everybody's questions tonight. We are running a little bit over time. Again, if you have questions that went unanswered tonight, we apologize. Send an email to help@onxmaps.com. We respond to everybody within 24 hours. So if you email us tonight, you can expect an email tomorrow from somebody helping you out there. We will post this video to our YouTube channel tomorrow, so it'll be available there. If you are watching this on YouTube after the live event, I'm sorry, the giveaway is closed. You're not eligible for that, but we do giveaways on just about every one of these master classes, so you can sign up for more.
And if you do win, you will definitely be contacted by Jack. So we'll see some people that'll reach out and say, hey, did I win? If you got an email from this gentleman, you won. If not, sadly, come to our next class and try again.
I'm going to show that one more time. So there's the giveaway. There's the hat we're giving away. Entries close at midnight tonight. So make sure you get entered. I'll send you an email tomorrow. We'll get the hat shipped out. We also have a discount offer for anybody who does not yet have a membership. Use the promo code app101. Saves you 30% off your first year. Has to be used on our website. If you go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, they don't accept promo codes. So don't purchase there. If you're wanting to use that discount code, you got to go to onxmaps.com, plug in app101, and that will get you set up there. And then mentioned it earlier, we're doing master classes once or twice a week now. Coming up, we have
A month.
No, once or twice a week.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
We're doing 101s once a month.
There.
Our next one's February 9th, I believe. But it's application season for folks hunting the West. We've got a bunch of those coming up, both with Top Rut, which is our kind of in-house draw odds calculator, and with the good folks at Hunt and Fool. They do a great job of breaking down different draw systems, helping you figure out, Montana's very complicated. So we've got a Montana class coming up, and we're also going to start getting into some wild turkey, turkey hunting and turkey conservation classes, since we're getting to be that time of year. So you can just Google onX Hunt Master Classes. That'll bring you to the page. You can sign up there. We try to have those kind of posted about a month in advance for the ones that are coming up. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Awesome. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions, email help@onxmaps.com, and we hope to see you at a future class.